My story starts at the age of 11. I was passionate about surfing, skateboarding, playing my drums, and dreaming of flying. I was the youngest of three boys, and we all grew up in a stable, cheerful, and encouraging household. All thanks to my parents, Eric and Deirdre, who can be with us today. The three of us were brought up in the Christian church, and we're all quite involved from church on Sunday through to youth group events. When I was 11 years old, I was already playing drums in the local church band. I was passionate about doing my part for the church. My pastors, over all the other children, took a shine to me. They told me I was special. They told me I had a significant call of God in my life to be a preacher, and that I was destined for greatness in the church. Little did I know, I was a prime target for one of my pastors to prey and fulfill his evil desires as a pedophile. And so this is where the grooming process began. For many months, I was spoiled with gifts of clothing, drum equipment, and lavish dinners and lunches. Slowly, all the other children in the group fell apart, and it was just me and the pastor continually left alone. He became my mentor, my best friend, and he took me under his wing as he encouraged me to grow into a good Christian. For 3 years, I was sexually abused by this pastor, 3 to 4 times a week. He told me it was our little secret, that no one needed to know, and that if anyone did know, and if I did tell anyone, no one would believe me. He used God as a weapon to abuse me continually for years. He tore me away from my family and completely brainwashed me with the lies and deceit that were wrapped up in the Christian faith and environment. Between the ages of 14 and 15, I started to wonder if what was happening was right. The thoughts haunted me day in and day out, so much so that during one of the last times the abuse occurred, I locked myself in the bathroom naked and cried in the shower so he couldn't hear me. He drifted away over a space of a few months and relocated. I then relocated church. As time was able to pass, I was able to make new friends and move on with my life. But I had a dirty little secret trapped inside of me, and it was something that no one was ever to know. I was invited to an open conversation with the new pastor at my new church. It was a Wednesday afternoon, 2006, and I was excited. I wanted to share with him my passion for the church, for God, dreaming of being a preacher, and playing my drums. When I sat down in his office, I was overcome with emotions. My body started to shake, and I couldn't take it anymore. My little dirty secret needed to come out. And there it was. I told him that I'd been sexually abused by my previous pastor. And as I said those exact words, my entire world came crashing down. The days that followed that conversation were absolutely soul-crushing for me. It was so embarrassing. I had to tell my parents, and then we had to tell the police. I spent days in the police station as I disclosed every single detail of my painstaking abuse. The police officers assigned to my case said it was one of the most extreme levels. The pastor was then arrested and charged with over 350 acts of sexual abuse towards me. I underwent painful examinations, from medical, grueling interviews with police officers, lawyers and barristers. It's something that no child should ever have to experience. I wasn't able to function on a daily basis. I couldn't get out of bed, and I couldn't face school. And if I did go to school, I'd be sent home after the first lesson. Even for my part-time job, it was a struggle for me. I would just end up crying during my shift for absolutely no reason. I suffered panic attacks that were too confronting, unfortunately, to disclose the details. My outbursts of rage and anger would end up with me destroying the walls in my bedroom and anything I could get my hands on around the house. During the next few months, I underwent intense counselling, therapy, medications, battled with anxiety and depression. I gained weight, and my best coping mechanism was dissociation, where I could escape into my own daydream world. I needed something to vent my frustration and anger. During this time, I'd lost all my friends and I had absolutely no support from anyone. Even the church wanted absolutely nothing to do with me. They went into hiding, and it was just my parents and I left to pick up the pieces of my life. My parents always knew that I wanted a motorbike so I could race around and clear my head, but I knew this wasn't possible as finances were tight. During this time, my parents often had to take time off work to look after me and stay home to make sure I was safe. These were just some of the darkest days of my life. I felt unloved, unwanted, cold, alone, and really had nothing to live for. One day during school, my mum picked me up and said we had to go for a drive. I didn't know where we're going, who we're going to meet, or what was happening. After a short drive, we arrived at a motorbike shop where Bruce and Denise Morcombe were standing there with open arms. We went upstairs and I was fitted with a helmet, boots, clothing, protective gear. It was the whole works. I felt and I looked like a rock star. I was finally invincible. As I made my way downstairs, they rolled out the most amazing gift imaginable. It was a brand new KTM 125 SX motorbike. This motorbike was my lifesaver. Finally, I was able to forget about my horrible life, and as I start the engine, I would rev it as loud as I could and fearlessly ride through the trees and forest trees. I was finally alive. I rode as fast as I could. I took corners way faster than I should, and unfortunately, I rode in many places where I probably shouldn't have been. The sound of the engine would drown out my soul-crushing thoughts in my head, and as I felt the wind go past my body, I could feel every part of my past dropping off me on every corner and jump that I did. What happened out in those fields on that motorbike when I was alone and with no one around will always remain a mystery to me. I faced my demons and I crushed every single one of them. The motorbike played a very important part in my life, giving me a distraction from a very stressful and horrible experience dealing with the criminal justice system. Sitting in that courthouse being cross-examined by lawyers, barristers, is something that I wouldn't wish for anyone to experience. Thankfully, the courts ordered the pedophile pastor to 8 years of jail, and finally some sort of justice was being served. That motorbike was my defibrillator, the massive electric shock that I needed to kickstart my life again. To know that someone out there actually cared about me so much to give me that motorbike made me feel love again and gave me a feeling of self-worth. It ignited inside me a passion and a drive for life. I had one key moment out riding one day. I remember it so well. I was out the back of Caloundra Airport on the Sunshine Coast and I turned off the engine. I sat there for nearly an hour watching the aircraft take off and land. I felt a rebirthing of my dream of flying that I had as a child. I couldn't shake the feeling and I knew what I had to do, but I knew also every odd was against me. I made a choice that day, and in making that choice, I knew there was no going back. I realised that I had one chance at this life on earth and I must do what I want to do and not be influenced by the brainwashing abuse that I was a victim to. So, with some advice from my cousin, who was an airline pilot, I dusted off that crushed dream of flying and made it my life passion. Soon after that day, unfortunately, the local police came to our house to investigate who was riding that motorbike up and down the street. So it was, I was busted. Unfortunately, there was no way I could actually hop on that motorbike again without getting myself into serious trouble with the law. All roads then led to selling the motorbike and using the money to pursue my dream and start flying lessons. 6 months later, I received my first pair of wings, my private pilot licence, and there it was, I was officially a pilot. My dream came to reality. After I finished high school, I continued with my flight training and was able to obtain my commercial pilot licence. I then moved to Western Australia, where I started my first flying job and spent 3 years acquiring hours in the remote outback in northwest Australia, with now my goal set on becoming an international pilot. I'm now proud to say that I'm based in Hong Kong, and I've become a first officer flying the Airbus A330. Thank you. So I'm now First Officer flying the Airbus A330 for Cathay Pacific Airways. My dream is alive and well, and I've been able to deal with my past and leave it behind and strive for success in everything that I do. I now travel the world for a living. I love every single moment of it. I have a new life and the ability to love and trust people again. So much so, that 2 weeks ago, I got engaged to my girlfriend. She said yes for the record. But the journey from a broken child to an international airline pilot hasn't been easy. I've underwent extremely stressful situations in my personal life dealing with my abuse. A complicated legal system and a church organisation that had zero support for me, but rather ran and hid behind closed doors. Even after chasing the church all the way to the Royal Commission, it's a shame for me to say today that I'm still disappointed with the outcome. The sad fact about my story is it should have been avoided and it should have been stopped. But the topic of crimes against children is one that is not spoken about enough today. The work that the Daniel Morcombe Foundation does by educating kids and parents is so essential in today's society. The support they offer to victims is irreplaceable and gives them a very real hope for the unfortunate children that are victims of crime. Kids need our support. Kids need to be loved. And kids need to know that someone cares about them. I'm so grateful for the Daniel Morcombe Foundation was able to show me exactly that by this gift of the motorbike. It has given me a second chance at life and the ability to finally look myself in the mirror, smile and be proud of what I see. The Daniel Morcombe Foundation, in my eyes, is not a charity or a foundation. It is a real life-changing and life-giving organisation, and I am living proof of that exact thing. Lastly, to Bruce and Denise Morcombe, how you at your time of terrible loss have been able to reach out to kids just like me and provide life-saving and changing support amazes me. And I don't think any of us here today will ever be able to thank you enough. To everyone involved in the Daniel Morcombe Foundation and to everyone who's generously given their time and money and help to the foundation, I want to say from the very bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for what you did for me. Thank you for reaching out to me in a desperate time of need. Thank you for believing in me, and thank you for your continued support to the many children just like me who you continue to help. Bruce and Denise Morcombe, I have to say, you guys are really living and breathing angels walking amongst us today. Thank you.